Hello, Travis Gafford's YouTube. I'm Matt Cubby Samuelson, co-host of Hotline League, here with my power rankings for LTA North and the rosters for this upcoming year. Now, notice how I said year and not split. I know the rosters might change, but for split 1, we're not going to have all the rosters in full force, so wanted to do rankings with the full rosters involved. On top of my thoughts on all these rosters, I'll have a few extra details about the new faces coming from NACL, as that's the league that I cast and cover. That being said, let's get into it. First up, we're going to start at the top. I've got FlyQuest in my top spot in S tier for the upcoming year. Now, FlyQuest made no changes, and this was a team that had the best performance NA has seen at Worlds in a long time. My faith in FlyQuest really stems from the fact that I thought this team got the roster right last year. I had faith, especially when they added Quad in summer. I thought he was the piece that they needed, and FlyQuest proved me and the rest of us right. Look, the pros for FlyQuest. Masu's year 1 was incredible. Year 2, he should be starting at a higher point and continue to improve. I also think Busio year 3 is going to be quite good. I think Busio had a lot of growth last year and is starting at a much higher point. You add Inspired, add Blippo on top of that, and the form that Quad was in. I think this is a really solid team that's going to be tough to beat. FlyQuest is at their best when they're digging deep in their champ pools to be flexible and show different strats. I think this team has a great mind for the game, especially with Blippo and Inspired on the top side. Their staff behind them prove they can work with them well last year. And for year 2 of FlyQuest running it back, they earned the right to do so, and we still have high hopes. Joining FlyQuest in S tier to no one's surprise is the other Worlds representative from NA, would be Team Liquid, who are also running it back, just adding Swiffer with their coaching staff. Now, when TL was at their best, it was when they were able to execute their strong early game compositions, with and Core JJ being very active on the map early, as well as being ahead of the swap meta compared to the rest of the world, which I'll give TL a lot of credit for last year. I think if you're a TL fan, your hope is that for the upcoming year, you get the same form that Impact and Core JJ had last year. These guys are GOATs of the game, but they hit really high highs even for their own standards last year in a form that we haven't seen from them in a couple of years, I'd argue. An and APA level up could also help TL a lot, as these two players were solid domestically, but we saw some holes internationally. Now, I will say, especially for Split 1, it's a little bit harder to execute early game comps in Fearless, as you just get a lot of different looks and teams aren't as drilled with the comps that we're going to see on stage. That said, still really believe in TL and that these guys can fight to be top dogs and represent NA internationally. Excited for the TL run back. Much like FlyQuest, I really believe these guys earn the right to do so, and we'll see what they can bring in the upcoming year. Kicking off A tier, I've got Cloud9. The additions for C9 include Sven returning to the team, now playing AD carry, as well as Loki coming from HLE Challengers in the LCK Challengers League. C9 features 3 familiar faces for fans who have all hoisted trophies under this org in the past in LCS. But with LTA North, these guys are looking to make their mark, one that they haven't been able to make in a bit, as C9's last victory would be 2023 spring. I think the hope for Cloud9 this year is that Sven and Vulcan can make up a strong bot lane. Blabber is the first team All-Pro from this past summer and is a perennial contender for All-Pro honors as well as MVPs in the LCS, and that shouldn't change in the LTA. I know we've talked about some of the familiar faces for C9, but Thanatos is a returning face that we haven't brought up yet. For me, Thanatos year 1, we saw the mechanics, but for year 2, really hope we see him expand his champion pool and play much more consistently on map. I'm not sure if that was a language barrier thing or just Thanatos' play personally. Be interesting to look out for in his second year in LTA North. Now, Loki's the new face for Cloud9, and my diagnosis of him from going through some of the tape is that he's just an okay laner, but I was actually really impressed by how he team fought. I thought he had good game sense as well as some good in-fight mechanics, and more often than not knew his job. It was about him getting there from the laning phase, which a lot of the times he was just going even or trying to do his job, which, to be fair, a lot of the meta last split was playing marksman lane, so farming up. Yeah, I thought that Loki was actually decent. I have him likely in the upper half of LTA North mid laners, and part of the reason why I have C9 topping out A tier. Also want to highlight his Yone. It's been his most played in solo queue for the last 3 years, and from the tape I saw, his Yone is legitimately fantastic. In the LCS era, fans look to Cloud9 to put their faith in them going international and to give NA results. And in 2025, we'll see if Cloud9 can do the same in the LTA North with this squad. Up next, in A tier, the only other team that will be there is 100 Thieves, as they are running it back with the addition of FBI in the bot lane. Now look, I think FBI going to 100 Thieves is the best move for the entire offseason of the LTA North. FBI is exactly what this 100 Thieves team needs. He can play with or without resources and bring some experience to a team that is still lacking some, as Sniper, Ayla, and Quid are younger players. I think FBI could also help Ayla try and grow Frankly, Ayla played better in NACL than he has in LCS so far. And I think 2025 is the year where Ayla needs to prove that he has earned his spot for the LTA North, and FBI, being a fellow Aussie, can help him get there. I have a ton of faith in FBI and 100 Thieves. I think they're going to be competing with the top of the table. And excited to see if 2025 can net them the same end results of 2024, but have much better regular seasons to get there, something that I think FBI can really help with. All right, I think this might be the first surprise for fans, but the team I have kicking off B-tier for LTA North 2025 is Dignitas. I've said it a lot on Hotline League, but I think it is crazy that the org Dignitas gets a prospect the caliber of Surdy. This guy has set solo queue records, LP records. He's won NACL, won CLOL. And for me, he's a player that is ready for the big stage with Dignitas, and someone that I really feel like can compete with the top half of top laners in the LTA North, even as a rookie. On top of that, he is joined by Shaden, who will not be playing Split 1 for Dignitas, but was a strong jungler for NACL. If people ask me who I felt like should be promoted from NACL, I would say Surdy, Shaden, XU, and Yuji in a heartbeat. 3 of the 4 end up making it, with 2 of them being on this team. Shout out to Yuji, who also deserves it, but unfortunately had some issues this offseason with visa status changes. That said, I really feel like the Surdy, Shaden just continuing their synergy from not just FlyQuest, but also EG, now ending up on Dignitas with a coach like Rigby, someone who has hoisted LCS trophies with multiple orgs. This is something that doesn't sound like a team that would end up on Dignitas, but hey, here they are, and if you're a Dig fan, this is your time, your year, to break the stigma that Dignitas is a bottom feeder LCS org. It's the LTA North. It's a new ecosystem, a new league, and Dignitas just might be here to play. Now, Dignitas as a team, I think they're going to lane really well. Surdy and Shaden are fantastic solo queue players. Ios has always had an account high up in solo queue. Tomo's strength for me is in laning. And their mid laner, Kine, joining the team, I feel like fits that mold well. With the lack of experience, I do think this team's going to struggle mid to late game and have some blips in terms of objective setups and team fight errors that's really going to hurt them early. But Dignitas is a team for me that by the end of the year, I would not be surprised if they're fighting with the top 4, maybe even top 3, because I have a lot of faith in the performances of some of these players overall. Given it's Surdy's debut in LTA North, a little bit more about him and my expectations. I really believe he could be a top 4 top laner in this league. He should be able to lane against anyone in the league. I think Growing Pains will be, in terms of how he plays fights, not always the best. I actually think he does play Matt very well. We saw that in NACL. We'll just see if he's able to consistently do that at the same level in LTA North, as he won't be getting all the leads that he had against some of the NACL top laners at the higher level too. But still have a lot of faith in Surdy as a player. I think that he will make a splash in year 1 of the league. Up next, I've got Shopify Rebellion, going to be the second team in B tier. Now, I think a lot of fans will see this and think it's a little bit low for the expectations of this roster. That could be it. I think a lot of their performance is going to ride on their 2 solo laners for the upcoming year. Fudge is coming off of taking a split off and will return to competitive play in the top lane for Shopify Rebellion. A fan favorite and someone who has had a lot of success in LCS. I think Fudge is someone that really thrives when it comes to playing aggressive, playing up, and snowballing that across the map. Something that I really believe contracts can enable. Someone who I consider to be a very solid and underrated jungler in the LCS, now LTA North. Now, Palfax is coming off of his worst year of professional play, and I think the big question for him is, can he reclaim the form that we saw Palfax lead NRG to when it came to their LCS championship and top 8 Worlds appearance? I think that if both those things can go right for Shopify Rebellion, they can threaten some of the teams at the top, and it's why I have them in this tier, because I do think that top 3s are within reach for this roster. That said, just don't have as much faith as other people do in the roster as a whole. I think Contracts is the strongest player. I haven't talked about the bot lane and Bvoy and Seos. Bvoy, for me, someone that did have a really standout spring, ended up winning first team All-Pro even when Shopify Rebellion didn't make the playoffs, wasn't quite as good in summer. I think Bvoy really thrived team fighting with big front lines. That's not the meta right now, and it doesn't look to be the meta in 2025. Don't think Bvoy and Seos push as far up in terms of bot lanes compared to some of the other bot lanes that we see in the league. And I also just don't have as much faith in Fudge or Palafox to reclaim the form that we saw when both these guys were hoisting trophies. So something to look out for Shopify Rebellion. I think that there are a few question marks with this roster, but also in terms of how they piece things together, it has given a lot of fans hope. And with Moist and Ludwig joining the crew and a little bit more hype behind Shopify Rebellion, see if they can push higher up in the standings and really convert a lot of fans over to them, something they didn't do as well of in their year 1 of LCS. Up next, first team in C tier, we've got Disguised, making their appearance in the LTA North in the guest spot. So a team that will be fighting for promotion relegation as the year goes on. Now, for Disguised, I'm really excited about XU making a reappearance in LTA North. XU is someone that I felt like last summer in NACL played very well with Fear X Starforge, had a lot of direction, what we saw from him in the LCS. And XU, that was a split where he had all this direction and good early games with Dignitas where they played through Tomo in the bot lane, and they just couldn't convert that to leads later on because their solo laners weren't good enough or just weren't on the same page. That issue was solved for XU in Fear X Starforge being able to communicate with everyone, and that team did very well in NACL with XU being a standout performer. I think that his chance again in Tier 1 very much warranted and deserved. Someone else that's making an appearance is Scary Jerry, the back-to-back first-team AD from NACL this past year. Now, Scary Jerry, my expectations for him, not as high as Masu or even Meech, who I know isn't in Tier 1 anymore, but just to give some perspective of where I have him from this past year. Scary Jerry was someone that needed to improve a lot, also won a most improved player in the spring from where he was at in fall 2023 in NACL. For me, AD's scouting has been somewhat figured out. We look for good spacing, good mechanics in fights, then we teach you the laning to get there. That's really what Danny and Masu had in these huge AD prospects that we've seen come up. Scary Jerry was more so the Yawn archetype. Both these guys much better laners, were decent team fighters, but sometimes made errors or has consistency issues that prevented them from always carrying their leads to the finish line. We saw Yawn really work through those in his first 2 years of LCS to now be, I would say, one of the best ADs that we have in LTA North moving forward. And for Scary Jerry, I just think that he's going to need a little bit more time, seeing him improve so much in NACL. And I think he's going to have to do that a little bit again here for LTA North. Now with Hui, that experience in the bot lane, I do think that's a good pairing. Abadage brings some experience to a young team as well. I think that Castle and Abadage as solo laners are not as strong as some of the other teams in the league, but the hopes for Disguise is that Scary Jerry can develop with Hui, and that this team just plays well together with good direction, something that I really believe XU brings to any team that he's involved in. So I have hopes for Scary Jerry improving. I think that he's going to be a decent to serviceable AD, especially by the end of the year, but not as high of expectations as I had for some of the other ADs coming into the league. That said, I said similar things about Yom when he was promoted, and he proved me wrong over the years. So really hope we see that from Scary Jerry, who did improve a ton in NACL, and I think that he's going to have to overcome that in LTA North, but he's someone that I know can do so. Now, last team rounding out C tier and a new addition to the LTA North, it would be Lion Gaming. Now, this was R7 last year, now going under Lion Gaming, and it's exciting to have them join the league. That said, I feel like they lost their best piece in Summit. He was replaced by an LCS favorite in Licorice, who, going through his tape, I actually thought played a little bit better last year than what he was given credit for. Mechanically, Licorice was not as good as I was used to seeing him with his time at Golden Guardians, but still had a really good idea and sense of how to play team fights in other stages of the game. Other new additions to Lion include Henna, an LCK journeyman who was on Foxbank this past year and now finds himself on Lion, as well as Saint, a rather exciting LCK Challengers League prospect that also makes his way to the LTA North, much like Loki. Now, this team overall, why do I have them ranked low and ranked last in the league? I think the jungle support duo is going to struggle a bit. Adi is a LATAM legend. He is someone that had so much success in that league, but was never really able to translate that to the higher stages of the play going international. And Lions, for me as a support, not going to be one of the stronger supports in the league. Jungle support duos, I think, are going to be so important this split with more objective fights and the setup around objective fights, just getting more and more figured out by teams internationally. These guys really have to level up. Now, if you're a Lion fan, I think the hope is that Licorice can regain some of his form with Golden Guardians, where he was an elite top laner in LCS, as well as Henna, an LCK journeyman who could hopefully experience similar success to what Umti experienced. I think these guys kind of similar in the role that they played for their teams and just bouncing around the bottom tier of LCK. Umti had a lot of success in NA in his first year. We'll see if Henna can bring that over as he's making his appearance with Lion this year. Other hope for Lion fans is that Saint can make a big splash in the LTA North. Much like Loki, he comes from the LCK Challengers League. Saint was a part of the DK Challenger squad that took second in the league in summer. For me, going through the tape, I got to compare him to Loki, just being from the same league, make it easier for fans of the digest too. I think hands-wise in lane, Saint was a little bit stronger. Loki, for me, was a more consistent performer in the team fights. Regardless, a lot of people that watched LCK Challengers League were more hyped up about Saint than Loki coming in. So really, if you're a Lion fan, just hoping that Saint can hit some of the highs that people might expect out of this player, and seeing some of the potential could be big for Lion and a way that they can outkick their coverage in LTA North for the upcoming year. That said, folks, that's it for me. Hopefully I was able to give some context as to why I power rank the teams where they were at, as well as good scenarios for the teams moving forward and some of the hopes that those teams might have to outperform where I have them in the rankings. As always, shout out to Travis and everyone that supports Travis Gafford's YouTube channel for supporting me on Hotline League and videos like this, as well as Drew for editing this and putting it together. You can follow me everywhere at CubbyXX on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. Stay tuned. We've got VOD review streams returning and more with the return of gameplay in 2025. That said, thanks so much for tuning in once again. We'll see you guys later. Peace.
Guys, Travis just told me he's going to pay me. I'm so excited. This is the first paycheck that I'm going to be getting, but something that you can do to give back in the same way that Travis has given back to me is becoming a member. I mean, it's cheap. You don't need to, but it's cheap. You get exclusive content, and who wouldn't want more TGI? All right, I got to run.